All go.
All right. Ted, if you wouldn't mind hitting the record button for us, and if folks wouldn't mind muting until they're ready to present. Okay. All right, and I am going to hopefully share my screen with folks. And if folks can see my screen, if somebody could just let me know.
It's there. You sure you want to show the whole screen instead of just the window?
There we go. How's that?
Looks great.
Alrighty. So first and foremost, thank you all for joining us this afternoon on a beautiful autumn afternoon here in Ithaca. Really appreciate you taking the time. My name is Cindy Rodriguez, and I am the co-founder of Adirondack Diversity Solutions. I am so excited to partner with some of my friends at Tompkins County Democratic Committee to bring this virtual series to you. The series is called the Local Politics Education Series, and it is a two-part series. The first part really looking to promote civic engagement amongst community members, really meant to be family-friendly, introduction to politics and local government. And the second part is going to be more of a technical nitty-gritty oriented series where we're really going to look into how to run for office, from how do you create your pitch to campaign finances. So we hope that you'll join us throughout the different series and really partake in everything that is available to you. So with that said, as I mentioned, this series is brought to you virtually by Adirondack Diversity Solutions and TCDC, really with the intent to promote civic engagement through education, access, and transparency. And we really wanted to promote diversity and inclusion within politics, specifically looking at access, education, and transparency into local government and politics. And so joining us today, we have Richard, Stacy, and Hallie, and I will take a quick moment and allow them to say a few words and introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Richard Onijurowa. It's a pleasure to see everyone, get to know everyone. Cindy, Haley, thank you for doing this. To the Democratic Committee, I appreciate this. I'm glad to be here. And I'll go ahead and pass it on to Stacy.
Thank you. My name is Stacy Demas. I am the second vice chair of the Tompkins County Democratic Committee, and I am so excited. Thank you, Cindy and Hallie, for putting so much work into effort and trying to make this happen. And I'm just really excited for our community. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Hallie Mitnick. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming, and thank you to our wonderful panelists. I've really enjoyed working with Stacy and Cindy to help plan the series, and we're looking forward to an exciting learning experience together. Thanks.
Thank you. And so today we have a couple of areas represented. We have Tompkins County, town of Ithaca, Trumansburg, and the city of Ithaca. And we found these fabulous maps through our local committee members who can also help you find anything from polling locations to district lines and municipal lines. So more on that later. So I'll go ahead and start introducing some of our panelists. And panelists, when I introduce you, feel free to wave to folks so that they know who you are. We'll start with Anne, and then I'll let Richard take it away with our next panelist. So Anne Corman. Anne is originally from Albany, New York, and for many years worked as an occupational therapist. She then went back to school and began her second career as a home inspector. Anne lives in Trumansburg with her wife and partner of 21 years. Anne also ran for office in 2017 and is currently serving a 4-year term as a Tompkins legislator. She is the current chair of the Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee and has served on numerous other committees to address affordable housing, workforce development, and climate change.
All right. Up next, we have Duxon Nugent. Hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. Please go ahead and wave to make sure folks know who you are. Just to make sure we have it here, Duxon is a software engineer at local cybersecurity firm, Gamma Tech, and represents the 2nd Ward downtown on the City of Ithaca, Ithaca's Common Council. He also serves as, on a board of TCAT and the United Way of Tompkins County. He and his wife, Amber, moved to Ithaca in 2009, so they've definitely spent some time here. Thank you, Duxon.
Thank you. And next we have Joanna Hanks. Joanna is an elected board trustee for Trumansburg Central School District, where she has served since 2016. She is a New York State School Board Association member and also works in enterprise risk management at Tompkins Financial Corporation. She's a resident of Trumansburg and a mother of 2, 10 and 5, age 10 and 5. Thank you, Joanna.
Okay. Should I take this one?
Please do.
All right. Next up, we have Pamela Blewas. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And go ahead. Yes, thank you for waving to the people. Pamela is an attorney and has served on the Ithaca Town Board since 2016. She was chair of the Town of Ithaca Democratic Committee from 2013 to 2016 and has managed or advised several political campaigns. She is a past president of Tompkins Community SPCA and Sisterhood of Temple Bethel. Pam resides on West Hill and with her husband Jeff and their 2 rescue Shih Tzus. I love it, Ruby and Trixie. Thank you, Pam, for being here.
Excellent. And so before we end our slideshow, of course, we need to have a plug, right? So please don't forget to vote. You can find voting information on voteearlynewyork.org. All right, and with that, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here and come back to hopefully Zoom here. And we'll start with Joanna Hanks, who is going to share a little bit more about the school boards, what they do, what roles and responsibilities they hold. I'll go ahead and let her take it away.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation. So I've actually been with Trumansburg Central School District this is my 4th year. Trumansburg is one of 6 school districts in Tompkins County. And if you count BOCES, there's actually 7 school boards in Tompkins County. So I'm actually serving my 2nd term starting this year, and every school district is different. Trumansburg has a 3-year term, and you can run unlimited terms, and other school districts, they may have less or more years depending on what their policies are. So when I decided to run for the board, I had to decide why I ran for the board. Coming from my background and coming from a family that is actually biracial, I didn't see representation on our board that really represented me and my family. So 4 years ago, I decided to run, and there was actually 2 seats available, and 3 people ran, so there wasn't too much, competition there. And I do have to say, with most school boards, there actually isn't very much contest. So it's probably a pretty easy thing to participate in. So then after I decided to run, I did have to look up, like, what are the qualifications to run? And I actually had to remind myself, because I was like, I think you just need to read and write. And that's almost exactly what it is. So this is directly from New York State School Board. You have to be a US citizen, which is, most qualifying elections. You have to be 18 years old. So the caveat there is that you can't be a student at the school, but as soon as you graduate, you can actually you can actually run for a position, and you cannot work there, is the other piece to it. You have to be a qualified voter in the school district, which qualified doesn't necessarily mean you're a registered voter. You don't technically have to register to vote in school elections for school board or for the school budget. And then you have to be able to read and write. So those are literally the qualifications to become a school board member. So what do school boards actually do? It's very high level. So school boards, they really look at the mission and vision of the schools and what the direction that they need to be going to. And so I realized in our school district that, the vision and mission there is for kids to be happy, and which is usual for most school boards, right? Or schools, is be happy and have 100% graduation rate, but you need more. So I was definitely setting myself up there to be on the school board for the long run, because I wanted to see more from our school district. You actually do have technically one employee under you, which is the superintendent. So as a school board member, you're the one that looks out for superintendents, what their qualifications are, and then actually hire the superintendent. Other than that, everyone else is hired by the superintendent. And so you do have, voice there as far as what happens within your school district. Strategic planning, which I think when you look at school districts, takes on very different meanings in different areas. And so as what we consider strategic planning in corporate America, it doesn't necessarily, happen at the school district level, where you have to bring in stakeholders from the community. The community has tons of voice and opinion and decisions that they want to see represented in their schools too. And so we have to hear from everyone, and we bring those people in. So we also adopt and maintain the policies for our school district, which does not mean that it, it comes from all school districts in New York State, but each school district has their own policies and procedures that can change and bring new meaning to the school. So the other thing that's pretty important is bargaining agreements between teachers associations and anyone that works within some kind of association. That way you actually do have a seat at the table to make those decisions, as far as, so if people are asking for a living wage, there is a voice there and discussion there, to come up with a good solution within your own area. So as far as that, so with that, that means that anybody can run for school board. So then you're like, how am I supposed to know what I'm going to do? I don't know that. So New York State School Board Association does offer several trainings that can help with your transition as a school board member. And so I have found, many ways to participate and to try and understand how we can incorporate what we voice into the school district. Having a great relationship with the superintendent is number one, plus other school board members. I guess I didn't mention that on our school board, there are actually 7 elected members, and every school board is very different. It can run anywhere from, I think it was 3 to, I think I've seen a school board with 13 seats.
Oh, wow.
In the state of New York. We are also not paid in Tompkins County, but there are school districts where the school board is paid, and those would be in large city schools, like New York City. I think Rochester may be one. So there's a few. Let's see. I think I had the commitment to being on a school board it can vary. It is, even though you run for a seat, it is voluntary. So whatever time you can put into it is a good time. I can put in anywhere from 5 hours, let's say, to just look at policies, maybe, and to talk to the superintendent, and that serves the community well. Some people, depending on the time of year, you can put in a lot more, 10, 15 hours in 1 week is not unusual, especially if there's a school board meeting. They can, depending on the issues, they can run a very long time. So right there, you already meet your, 4 hours just by having a public meeting. So we also have committees. In Trumansburg, we have committees. Not every school district has committees, depending on how large the committees are. And just because you don't have time to run for a board position does not mean that your voice is not heard. Committee meetings are also open to the public, and it can be a great way to contribute to your school district. We have finance committee, policy committee, which are, really big, especially at this time when, with social unrest, people are always asking, what does your policy say on, some of these issues? Is it time to change some of these policies? And it is helpful for community members because we are doing it on our own. And financially, we come up, the school board actually, with the help of the superintendent and the staff that's there, we're the ones that have to come up with the school budget and send it out to the community for a vote. So if you're financially inclined, it is helpful to be on those committees, especially when we're seeing a decrease in finances from the state and federal government. And people are asking, well, why are my property taxes going up again? And you don't fully understand as somebody that's just volunteering. Sometimes it's very difficult to answer those questions. You can't.
Right.
So, there's a lot of ways to contribute into the school district. Showing up at board meetings is so important. Usually there's nobody at our board meetings. But, it'd be great if there were a couple of people that were interested in the work that we're doing. So even contributing in that way would be fantastic. Just some of the things that we're seeing right now in school, in our school at least, and perhaps in several other school districts are, I mentioned before, funding shortages from the state and federal government, and what we can do to kind of mitigate some of those problems. COVID-19 safety, because of what you're hearing nationally, you hear a lot of parents asking, what are we doing to keep our kids safe? Are our teachers safe? Are our kids safe? And it is our responsibility. It's the school district's responsibility to come up with the safest way, but not every school district is the same. Every school district operates differently. Even though we all get input from all of the other school districts, every school district is different and every population is different. Are we being socially responsible? Are we, what are we teaching our kids now? With the material, does it represent everybody within our community, or does it only represent a small fraction of our community, or who knows, a large fraction, but do they get enough information from their classes? Why are my property taxes going up this year? That's the biggest question that we get every year. My property taxes. And then a big issue that has come up lately is data security, which is, no surprise, because school districts and hospitals are the most vulnerable as far as the information that they have. Is my child's data safe? So a lot of school districts have had to put in a lot of work just to make sure that, we keep up with state mandate and federal mandate, and we do have good answers for parents. So those are things that we really look at. There's way more, I think, than I could cover, but that's just the top of
Tip of the iceberg there, huh?
Exactly.
Oh man, that's great, Joanna. Thank you so much. And just for our viewers who are interested in joining a board meeting, how can they do that?
Every board is different. Trumansburg, at this time, because of COVID, most of our meetings are on Zoom, so you can view our meetings, and we record all of our meetings as well. So we do have our own YouTube channel where people can go back and look at meetings. But usually we do have our meetings. They're usually on Mondays, once a month, more during the end of the year at budget season. And then the best way to reach the school board is actually by email, which our emails, just like every other public official, is public on the school board's website.
Excellent. Thank you. It's a lot of stuff you have going on there.
A lot.
Very busy.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on this awesome Saturday. So, and for sharing the wealth of knowledge that you have. And before we move on, just one more to repeat that resource again. I think it was the National Association that you found very helpful in your training.
Yes, it's the New York State School Board Association. And most
Perfect.
school boards are registered members, so those resources are available for all school board members.
Excellent. Thank you, Joanna.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so next up we have Duxon. And Duxon, if you don't mind just sharing a little bit about, city government, how you as a council member, and of course, you a council member in these interesting times, I could only imagine what it's like. But just share, what is that like? How'd you get involved? And any questions, advice, resources that you'd like to share?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. So I got involved, well, it started by when my wife and I moved here. We didn't know anybody, and it's harder to make friends when you're an adult. So we joined this young professional group called Tompkins Connect, which is still operating. And Savante, the mayor, the current mayor, Seth Murtaugh, who's still the other second ward rep, and Nate Shinagawa, who was on the county legislature. I got to know them. I remember meeting Nate and saying, wow, so an Asian guy can make it onto local government in Tompkins County. And I didn't think that for myself, but as I paid more attention to happenings in the area and housing issues in particular, we moved downtown in 2013. And that just made me feel all the more connected to the community and made me pay more attention and made me want to get more involved. And so I was on the board of Tompkins Connect for a while. And when J.R. Claiborne retired from his seat after 10 years of excellent service, I threw my hat in the ring. And to run for office, you need to collect signatures. So it depends on the number of registered people in your party for the area in which you're registering to run in. So if I recall, something on the order of, since I was running as a Democrat, something on the order of 80 or 90 signatures at a minimum I had to get, and you typically want to double that. So I remember getting roughly 200 signatures to run back in 2015. Council races are typically uncontested with incumbents, but because it was an open seat, there was a primary and then there was a general election. And so I did spend some money. If you raise more than $1,000, you have to register with the state with their campaign finance and do regular filings. If you don't, then you don't have to do that. I think you do have to file locally, but I'm not sure of the details of that. But I did, because it was contested and I was raising money well beyond $1,000, I did register. I still have to regularly report to New York State, even though there's no campaign activity. And otherwise, you go back in the old days, you'd go door to door and knock on doors. You can also call, of course, and do mailers, leave hangers on people's doors. I did all those things, but door to door by far gave me, I think, the best opportunity to talk to people and to introduce myself. Unlike JR, I hadn't lived here for decades. I've only lived here for I say 2013. So for 4 or 5 years when I was running, and so I had to get people to know who I was and what I stood for. So council itself has 10 members. We are a mayor, council, form of government. Other cities have city managers, or they have at-large seats, meaning council seats that represent the entire city, but we don't have that. All 10 of our seats are tied to wards. We have 5 wards. We're highly unusual in that we have 2 representatives per legislative district. Every time I visit a city, I look up their government on Wikipedia, and I don't think I've found another city in which there are 2 reps per ward or per district like we are. So it's unusual, and there was an opportunity after the last census to change that, as there is after every census, and so there'll be an opportunity to change that after redistricting the 2020 census. But conversations out of that last effort, which I wasn't involved in, but I had read about, was that people liked having a backup representative. I see Eric Rosario is on the call, so he was also a second ward representative for downtown. But it's nice, like if one person can't make an event or just isn't able to respond to email right away, it's nice to have a partner. And I'm very lucky that Seth Martin is such a great colleague to work with. So we are largely responsible for passing laws and the budget. At least that's our kind of legal obligation. But I would say mostly we spend our time connecting our constituents with services. So we alone are unlikely to solve that many constituent issues directly, but we can point people in the right direction to the staff member who can resolve their issues, or just at least give them information, or at the very, very least, just listen, so that the next time that we make a decision that is relevant to that issue, we take it in mind. We're also asked to liaise with other bodies. So I'm a liaison to the Mobility, Accessibility, and Transportation Commission, which is one of our 4 newish advisory commissions. So this one is dear to my heart because it deals with transportation issues, and I'm a cyclist and pedestrian. I'm someone who wants to see that infrastructure improve. I also serve on the TCAD Board of Directors as the City of Ithaca's one of 3 City of Ithaca representatives. And then on the side, you're often asked to do other things. So I've been on hiring committees. I'm also on the JR actually roped me into being on the board of the United Way of Tompkins County, which he's still a member of. And so there's a lot of liaising and connecting and just talking to people, which is funny because it's the complete opposite of my day job. I'm a programmer by trade, and I like being a programmer because it's a pretty solo. I work for a company and an organization and a team, but for the most part, my days are very isolated. It's nice to have an outlet for the. I am an introvert, but it is nice to network in other ways. As a council person, we make $10,000 a year. So most of us either have day jobs or retired from day jobs. We run the gamut. We have someone like George McGonigal who owns his own business, to Cornell people, to myself, like I said, I'm a programmer. So I'm going to share something that'll help visualize the budget a little bit. Oh, I guess I can't do that. That's okay. I don't have permission apparently, but that's fine. So like I said, one of the biggest things and most important things we do is manage the budget, which is what we're doing right now. That kicked off this past Wednesday with the mayor presenting his budget. And then over the next month, we as council will make amendments to that. It's not like the federal government where typically the White House does a budget and then Congress just ignores it and then does their own budget. We probably could, I guess, but we don't do that. It's much more collaborative. And plus, the mayor has more of the day-to-day interaction with the staff to determine their specific needs. But 39% of our budget comes from property tax. 25% comes from sales tax. We're a bit lucky in that regard because we're the seat of the county where all the shopping is, and so there's a lot of economic activity. 21% on this pie chart is called local revenue. I wasn't sure whoever made this slide. I'm not sure exactly what they counted as that, but it can include things like building permits. And if you've been in the city, you know that there's a lot of activity going on. The town of Ithaca, Pam knows, pays for fire service. So the fire department covers the town of Ithaca as well. Fees for youth services that non-city residents pay, and other things like that. Parking makes up 5%. State aid makes up 6%. And federal government, last I checked, gave us about 100 grand, which is practically nothing, but that's a piece too. In terms of what we spend our money on, the bulk of it goes to Department of Public Works. That means sidewalks and roads and sewer, water, all those things. The next biggest buckets are public safety with police and fire. Police, I know, is around $12 million a year to fire. Richard, you know this as well because you're on the Community Police Board. Fire is almost the same, but more like 10 or 11 million. And then from there, various other city agencies are smaller, with the Youth Bureau at 5 million, planning, GIAC, etc. Staff and benefits, I mean, so people essentially make up 72% of spending. And so yes, there's a lot of, you know, paying for materials and, you know, capital costs for building roads and stuff, but probably true of most organizations is paying for people is where the bulk of the cost comes from. What else have I noted here? So one of the things that I think I didn't understand too well, or was slightly surprising, was kind of the limited scope of City Council's powers. So we are called a home rule state, but there are a lot of things like as simple as residential parking permits to enacting new taxes. Like if we wanted to enact an income tax, we'd have to go through the state legislature. We wanted to set a portion of the city to be to have residential parking permits, which a lot of people want because their off-street parking is taken up by people who, you know, drive downtown for work or by tourists or whatever. That has to go through the state legislature. So the extent to which things are controlled by the state is higher than I expected. Several state roads cross through the city, and so it can be frustrating when a constituent complains about a closed sidewalk or something like that, and whether they want, you know, a signal crossing over a crosswalk. You know, that we can't do much about it other than to petition the New York State Department of Transportation. So that's been a source of frustration. There's other more subtle things that we don't have power over. So we have a Board of Public Works, which is a volunteer board that makes infrastructure decisions. So they will often make a decision on whether a bike lane comes in or not. The latest big fight on that was on Tioga Street by the Commons. So again, we can advocate, but ultimately they make those decisions. We set the rules for zoning. That's another one of our important roles, but we set the law, and then other boards use that as the structure for making their decisions. So there's, you know, you can make appeals against zoning. That's a different board. There's the planning board that approves projects. And so there's a lot of different pieces to city government. We don't have all the power, and it can be both frustrating and relieving to pass some of that responsibility off. And yeah, we can spend, you know, I mentioned we all have day jobs, or most of us have day jobs, but we could easily devote an entire 40 or 80-hour work week to council matters, so to going to meetings, to diving into things. Most of us can't quite do that, and so we rely on, you know, staff advice. We rely on each other to break things down and to kind of assign each other pieces when appropriate. But yeah, it can be all consuming. I mean, the TCAT board can be for that matter too. Because I have all these other responsibilities, I maybe only devote a few hours of it to that a week, but that too can easily eat up 20, 30 hours. So besides running for office, to get involved in city government, you can just simply pay attention. I've been a little off this year with live tweeting meetings, but I'd like to do that just in case you don't want to watch the video. You can just kind of check it on Twitter periodically to see how the meeting is going. But in general, I try to be active on social media because I know that's how a lot of people engage with government these days. So paying attention and sending in comments, and you can now, during Zoom, make a comment with us with live video. You can also join any of the advisory commissions I mentioned earlier, or serve on any of these boards, such as Community Police Board, the Planning and Development Board, Board of Public Works. We have a lot of city volunteer positions, many of which have openings all the time. And even the ones that seem, you know, less sexy, like the Board of Zoning Appeals, like, you know, who wants to make up or down decisions on whether someone should be able to violate zoning? Well, I mean, they're extremely important, and they can be fascinating, you know, because the impetus might be to say, the tendency might be to say no, but a developer might come to you and come with a very compelling reason for why they need that extra 6 inches of height or something. And so I think everything, to me anyway, is fascinating in city government. When the federal government is so inept or so kind of dismissive of our needs, it's nice to have some handle on what's going on locally.
Thank you. I just have one question before we pass it on. For folks that, let's say, don't know exactly where to start to get on Common Council, right? Or even understand how wards work. How did you understand that to even, I understand you were able to meet with some friends in terms of Nate, Sabante, but for yourself, understanding it and being able to, is one, understanding it and then going ahead and taking action on it. What were the websites that you looked at, or how did you understand, I talked about wards. Most folks aren't familiar with how wards are structured. How did you get to understand it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, I did have help from friends, but the Tompkins County website has a lot of resources, a lot of maps that help map that out. They're not the easiest to read, so actually that's one reason why I made my own website, ithacasecondward.org, with, in my opinion, a friendlier ward map. It's much more obvious, color-coded for each ward and each election district. So listings, the county website does have great resources. They're not always, they're not city-centric, obviously. So like they just did all the election districts and wards as part of a larger legislative map, along with the legislative districts and everything. So it was still very helpful for me, but I ended up having to do my own thing to highlight the actual boards. I spent a lot of time on the Board of Elections website. Again, this was easier back in the day before COVID, before times, but I actually met with Steve DeWitt, who is the Democratic Commissioner at the Board of Elections, and he helped me out. So yeah, I mean, I think your personality plays into it too. I'm kind of an academic person, so I did not mind kind of just reading the Tompkins County and New York State Board of Elections website. I spent a lot of time on New York State Board of Elections website too, for the reason of campaign finance, like I mentioned earlier. I didn't want to screw that up and get like arrested, even though chances are no one cares about small city council races. But nonetheless, I want to play by the rules. The financing, it's this annoying tool you have to use. So I did end up doing a lot of reading. But you don't have to. Like, I think if you approach any of us on council, or anyone who's been on council in the past, is happy to help and to walk you through this individually. And I think that's probably the biggest thing I'd say is just don't be afraid to ask. It's a lot easier to, if we don't remember every rule, we'll certainly be able to point you in that direction.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I'm going to pass it back to, before I quickly note, Stacy was kind enough to put the link to the city government on the chat. So folks, go ahead and check that out, www.cityofithaca.org. And when you have a chance, or if you're looking for interactive maps, geo2.tompkins-co.org/HTML. Feel free to go ahead and explore and really go ahead and get to know. It looks like research is really key in terms of leadership. So please do the research. Thank you, Duxon. I appreciate your time.
All right, and we'll move on to Town of Ithaca. And looks like that's Pam. There we go. See that smile. Pam, tell us a little bit about your role with the Town of Ithaca.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy. I want to thank everybody for asking me to participate, and also thank everyone who's participating today. I think this is a really important introduction to members of our community. I hope we keep things like this up. Maybe we wouldn't have found ourselves in the terrible national situation we are in if people knew a whole lot more about what was going on locally. So I'm a member of the Ithaca Town Board. What does that mean? What is the Town of Ithaca and what do they do? So the Town of Ithaca is one of 9 towns in Tompkins County. So we have this big county, and then it's split up into subdivisions, 9 towns plus the city of Ithaca. The Town of Ithaca is commonly called the donut around the city of Ithaca. Some people might call it like suburban Ithaca. So it's It doesn't really have a commerce center, but it has a lot of residential neighborhoods, and it has some degree of commerce. Things like East Hill Plaza, a lot of Cornell are in the town of Ithaca, especially when you head out past the vet school or at the vet school. So our role on the town board, well, first of all, the town government is, there's a supervisor who's actually a member of the town board. And let's just say the supervisor is kind of like the mayor, a little bit different because town law and city law is a little bit different. And then and the town of Ithaca has 6 additional town board members. And if I had to say in one sentence who we are, the town board members, we're the representatives of the citizens to oversee the business of the town. There are many towns, there are like 700 towns in New York State. Some are huge, like the town of Hempstead in Nassau County, where I grew up, is like, almost 1 million people. The town of Enfield is a whole lot smaller than the town of Ithaca, which has about 20,000 people. And every town is run a little bit differently. There are town laws, but there's a question of how much is done by the town board members and how much is done by the staff of the town. And in the town of Ithaca, we're very fortunate. We have a healthy economy and we have a wonderful staff. I think we employ somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 60 people year round, plus some summertime employees, but don't quote me on the exact number. And what we do is we provide certain essential services to the people of Ithaca. That's really, what we do. We bring you your water for the most part. That's a little complicated too, but the water comes to you through the town of Ithaca, through our workers, through our pipes, unless you have a well. We have sewer. We provide, sewer services. Again, there's part of that as a joint with other municipalities, including the city. As Duck mentioned, we provide fire service, and the town of Ithaca, actually, we don't have our own fire department. We contract with the city of Ithaca and with Cayuga Heights to provide fire services in different sections of the town. And we provide public works, which is, a lot of what I just said about water and sewer and all that infrastructure. We have to maintain the infrastructure, but we also, build and maintain roads. So, a lot of the roads you travel on are county roads, a lot are state roads, but a lot are town roads. If you live in the town of Ithaca and you're not on one of the big major thoroughfares, which could be a state or county road, chances are you live on a town road. So we plow the streets, we maintain the roads, we pick up your brush, for people who are in homes with yards, when you have to get all those dead trees down and out there on the side of the road, the town of Ithaca will come pick up your brush. We also have a code enforcement department that basically is to ensure the safety of the people in our town. So they provide like building permits and inspections, and they give you your certificate of occupancy, and it's to protect the citizens, to make sure that, nobody is selling you or renting you a residence or an office that is unsafe for you to be in. There's many reasons that a building can be unsafe. So, we look at that. We also started recently what's called a rental registry. So if you own a rental property in the town of Ithaca, you have to have a permit to rent it out. That place has to be inspected, which was another citizen protection action. Another department in the town is the planning department, and that really relates to land use and helping, what does the town look like? What's getting built where? Can you do that? There's, what is the zoning? And, the planning and how the town is built out. Also, the planning department also works in conjunction with 2 boards, the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Planning Board. And again, there's not enough time in this to talk about the division of responsibilities, but the responsibility is decided. And I will note that those 2 boards have citizen volunteers on them to help, make these determinations for our community. What does the town of Ithaca look like? To give you a really concrete example, something that's always coming up. I live on West Hill. And, you know, there's some open space out here in the town of Ithaca on West Hill, and there's often talk about development. But there's also concern about traffic, because we have, you know, 1 or 2 roads. Right now it's just one. I think 79 is still closed. But, you know, I have to come down Route 96. Well, there's 89 also, but you know, you have these roads and then they get bottlenecked in the city, and it makes people's commutes really long. So then, you know, that always becomes a question. Is this the right development to put here? Is what needs to be done in order to make it more livable for the people who already live there? You know, that's just one of many kinds of considerations that come up when you're talking about what is your town going to look like. And we also have a town clerk who is sort of responsible. An overview, I'm going to say, if she does everything. Big shout out to Paulette, the Ithaca town clerk. But she's not on the call, but you know, it's always good to give her a shout out. She does everything. But I would say her biggest role is to keep records and interface with the community. You need something from the town, you call the town clerk. You know, she'll issue you your marriage license. She'll tell you how to, you know, file your plans. She'll tell you who to call to get your building permit or an inspection, and, you know, really serves the people of the town well. So as a town board member, I'm kind of in charge of overseeing everything with this group. You know, the supervisor does a lot of the day-to-day work directly with the staff, but the board members, we vote on everything. So we vote on how our money's being spent, how much money we're taking in, how much money we're spending. I know Duck referred to the budgeting process. The budgeting process is probably the most important thing that we do. Budgets are a value statement. You might hear this as people talk about government, but if you decide that it's really important for your workers to have a living wage, that's in the budget. So if you think it's okay to pay someone minimum wage and your budget reflects that, you know, you're reflecting the values of your community. So, you know, in the town of Ithaca, we pride ourselves on being a good employer, on paying, you know, a living wage, on paying, being sort of in a higher bracket of wages. So sometimes we poach employees from the county, and sometimes the county poaches employees from us. So we want to make sure, and Cornell and the city. And so we want to make sure that we get really good people. And the way to get good people is to pay them well and treat them right. Cindy had asked me yesterday to talk about remuneration, and in the town of Ithaca, we are paid to serve on the board. I don't know if every town pays people. We are actually paid very well in the town of Ithaca to serve on the board. We get a salary of about $15,000 a year to do it. And the amount of time you put in, I would say it's about a quarter-time job. We're probably putting in 10 hours a week between meetings and committees, or we all serve on committees. I'll address that shortly. And then also just keeping up, you know, you read all the letters that come in. We have a lot of people writing to us right now about 3G. So you want to, you know, be kept aware of what's going on, and kept aware of what's going on in the community. And, you know, we sometimes we have city, you know, town ordinances. We want to keep up to that. So there's a lot of reading. There's a lot of material to go through. Make sure you know what's going on. And all the town board members serve on committees. There are a bunch of committees. I might not get them all. There's a public works committee to advise how public works goes. There's a planning committee, again, to work with the planning department. And there's a budget committee, which, you know, sort of does the work all year long to prepare the budget for voting on by the town and presentation to the citizens. And I serve on the budget committee, and I also chair the personnel and organization committee. And so what I will say to people who are interested is, you know, it's a lot of nitty gritty work. You know, you're not going to change the world by sitting on the Town of Ithaca board, but you are going to serve your community, and you may be able to find a passion that you can run with. So the Town of Ithaca, I think I said city, I meant town. You know, the city. And Duck and I were joking about this yesterday, how everybody always thinks that the town of Ithaca is the city of Ithaca, and we get people coming to our board meetings and, you know, complaining about something the city's doing, and we say, I'm sorry, you need to talk to someone else. Usually we try to help them find the right person, but it's a common misconception. But I will say that if you're willing to put in the work and you're willing to do the nitty gritty, there are ways to follow your passion on this. So if your passion is affordable housing, you know, we're making housing decisions. We're making decisions about, you know, zoning and, you know, what if we have an affordable housing project, what does it look like? You know, is it something that's just a bunch of houses thrown up together with no bus route and no parks for the kids? Or is it something else? Is it something with green space? Is it something, you know, so, yeah, you know, just all of these value judgments are being done. Another thing that you can be working towards is environmental protection. You know, certainly we're not gonna, you know, we banned fracking a long time ago before I was even on the town board, but we're not going to solve the climate crisis, but, you know, we run trucks and we worry about things like runoff when we do construction. And so there are ways to make sure that the town of Ithaca is a good steward of the environment. And, you know, if every town had people who cared if their town was a good steward of the environment, well, the whole country would be taken care of. So, you know, that's sort of what I see as the bottom of, you know, the lowest layer of government. But, you know, if this grassroots layer of government has good environmental policy and that's spread all over the country, all of a sudden we're not going to have to worry about the environment anymore. So it's a great way to get involved if you have some kind of passion. You know, as I said, I really, I sort of accidentally got on the Personnel and Organization Committee because there was a spot and nobody else wanted to do it. But I actually was kind of psyched to do it because I really do believe that the value of anything, of any company, is your employees. I think it's, you know, when we think about, oh, we spend so much money on employees, it's like, you know, no, we're spending money on good sewer infrastructure, but we need to pay people to have good sewer infrastructure, and we're not going to have it unless we treat them right and pay them well and give them good benefits. So I'm a big fan of treating employees right. And I think, you know, I think that's what sparks a good economy. You know, the more income that people have in our area that are given to local people spurs local spending, spurs more sales tax, spurs a stronger economy. So so that was one of my passions, you know, so I always try to make sure that we're doing right by our employees. So I will say that I was asked about qualifications. You do have to be a citizen in order to, you know, you have to be eligible to vote. You have to be a citizen in order to run for town board. You have to live in the town. And you have to be 18 years old. But there's no, you don't need any specific knowledge. I think that, you know, if you're willing to do the work and if you're willing to be open to learning about how to do the work, you know, it's a good way to give back to your community. It's also a good way to advance your passions, as I just spoke about. I became involved because I was involved in the Tompkins County Democratic Committee. I know it's very unfashionable right now to support the two-party system. And I will say that whether it's right or whether it's wrong, the United States of America has always been a two-party system, and it's not going to change. So if you don't like the way the party is, change the party. I look at Stacy nodding because she's my hero, and she's bringing us forward, and that's just great. So So if you want to get involved, I do encourage you to get involved in a political party, because, you know, you can learn about the government, and you can learn about how to do things, and you can learn about the opportunities, and you can meet like-minded people who want, you know, to have a community that looks the way you want it to look. So that was very helpful for me. I became a member of the town board because I was involved in the town of Ithaca and Tompkins County Democratic committees. I was actually chair at the time of the town of Ithaca committee. And there was an opening, there was a retirement, and I said, I'm gonna do it. And then actually a couple other people said, you should do it. And I was like, done.
That's great.
You know, I didn't have an opponent. We don't tend to have contested elections. You know, as a candidate, sometimes honestly, I'm gonna be honest with everyone, it's great. But, you know, as a citizen, maybe, you know, maybe contested elections were a good thing. You know, it's good to get people involved, and there are so many ways to get involved, and I don't want to hog any time, but I will say that if anyone resides in the town of Ithaca and is interested in becoming more involved, please reach out to me directly, and I will talk to you and point you in the right direction and answer any questions that you have. I think that might be it that I have, unless unless someone else has anything they want to ask me.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Pamela. That was a very comprehensive look at the town board, you know, really appreciate you reaching out and putting yourself out there as a resource. I know that our subsequent series will also provide additional resources, but as you and Doug said, you know, it's really great to really start engagement and participation, you know, at the local level, though you may not be able to save the world all at once, right? It starts with these small pieces, right? These small pieces to a grander puzzle. So thank you so much for that. Next up, we have Ann.
Yeah, next up we have Ann. Ann, thank you for your time. Just go ahead and give us a little bit more. Give us a little bit more background, if you can, and of course, similar to Duxon and Ham, how do folks get involved?
Let me turn off the mute. I almost forgot that. I really appreciate all the folks that organize this. So I just want to say that first. Anytime we can get more information out there about what government does, how you can get involved, I think creates more diversity, and it creates more participation in government. I know I speak for the other folks on here that anytime we can get more feedback, we can get more information of what people need and where services are needed, you know, the better. So I'm just going to start off also by just saying just really quick about how I got involved in government. So I grew up in a working class family, and when I moved out to the Ithaca area in the 80s, I became involved in social justice and environmental activism. And so I did a lot of going door to door or figuring out what was going on, trying to keep the pulse, you know, like I remember years ago when someone came to my door and said they wanted to have us sign a lease because they were going to do this new kind of hydraulic fracturing, and that I didn't need to worry about it. And so anyway, that helped spur what other folks already talked about as far as, you know, banning fracking and other environmental things that we've been able to do. Next, well, so then I had somebody approach me a couple of years ago that said, oh, you know, we want you to run for county legislature. And I hadn't really thought about that because for several reasons. One thing is I always thought, well, I want to be really pure. And I always kind of thought of government as kind of corrupt and just doing things for maybe somebody's benefit, but not really the people's benefit, for the benefit of the most amount of people. And so I had kind of shied away from that. although I found myself a lot of times going to government to ask them to do this, this, and this. And so when someone came and asked me to do that, I thought, well, maybe we need to be part of the solution, and maybe we need to have more people have a seat at the table who have done things like I've done. And but one of my biggest things that I was afraid of public speaking. So luckily I've gotten, I think, a little bit better at that, although I'm much better at the one-to-one, which I think, as other folks have said, that's I think the best skill that you could have for this. And you could develop this if you don't have it either. But going door to door or talking to people that you run into at the store, although nowadays you don't really stop and talk to people in the store, you kind of just, keep your mask on and keep running. But just to be able to have those conversations, I think is really important. And so I really value those times. And some people talked about going door to door. We kept track when I ran for office. I said, oh, I can do the door to door thing. I like talking to people. We went to over 2,000 households. And my district, there's about 7,200 people, and I think about 5,000 households, something like that. And so anyway, we did a lot of door to door, and I want to put a shout out to Pam Blywise. She's in my district. She lives in my district, and she helped me initially go door to door and to get used to doing that. And she helped advise me on my campaign. So I can't say enough thanks to Pam and to other people who helped me. And as folks have said, that's a good thing to do. I think very helpful is to talk to people who have run for office before. And one of the things that I just kept in my head was that I wanted to do it my way. Even though people gave me a lot of advice, I really made sure that I said, okay, I'm not going to change who I am. I'm not going to do things that the usual way, and I won't go into those details now. I know you're going to cover more of that in other forums. But I just wanted to make sure I stayed authentic to myself, or I wasn't going to do this. So next, I'm going to get into talking about what the county government does, and then I'll get into the representatives for that, the legislators. So we do have some overlap with some of the stuff that the towns and the city does. So this is really great to be on the same forum. So the county doesn't do actual development. We don't set the guidelines for development, zoning, or the building code for local municipalities, but we do have a large planning department that helps the municipalities do that, and we do overall planning for the county. It's not mandated, but we might, for instance, some of the planning has to do with, oh, this area might be better, a great place to have more housing, because we are a growing county, and we do, for instance, need more affordable housing. So we might say, well, here in this area, they do have sewer and water, and it's underutilized, so maybe it would be better to have some housing here. And but again, we're not going to mandate that, but we could help make that happen if municipalities agree with that, and if the constituents agree with that. So we have at the county, we also have a public safety department. We have a sheriff's department. The city has a police department, and we also deal with roads. So we have, as Pam said, there's some roads that are city, some are town, some are county, and some are state roads. So we deal with the county roads, but we also deal with the other municipalities to help make sure that they're taken care of. So I didn't know anything about this aspect before I became a legislator, and talked to the people at the various highway departments and at the town and the village road departments. So for instance, they share equipment. they have agreements that say, hey, well, you know, if I'm doing this road, but a little bit of it is in the town, the county is maybe going to plow that part of that road, and then the town plows a different part of their road, a road for them that makes more sense versus the plows going out and stopping right at, you know, where the county road ends. And they do the same thing for other maintenance of the roads too. And that saves time, that makes the roads safer, and it also saves us money too. So other departments that we have 30 different departments. I'm gonna go just mention some of them. We have ones that I haven't mentioned before. Let's see, we have recycling and materials management, Department of Social Services. Some of the things they do are help people get food and housing assistance. We have a large Department of Mental Health, Department of Motor Vehicles, the DA, probation, services for youth, seniors, and veterans. We have a county airport, Board of Elections, Emergency Response Department. So when you call that 911 number, we take care of that and make sure someone is sent out to help you and whatever need you have. We have a county historian, a human rights department, a transportation department, workforce, weights and measures. So if you're going to the store, like I like to buy things in bulk, or if you're going to the gas station, how are you sure that those scales are working properly? How are you sure that when you're paying for a gallon of gas, it's really a gallon? So we have a weights and measures department that's kind of unseen, but they go out and make sure that everything is accurate. Even I found out, even if you're buying a pound of nails at the hardware store, they make sure that it's a pound of nails. And I mentioned we have a planning department, and we have a health department, which has been in the news a lot lately. And so since COVID started, that department has been working overtime. We've commandeered people in various departments from around the county to go work with our response to COVID. And we have an emergency operations that's been set up that people are still working at, and that will, I imagine, continue to work on till this crisis is over. Let's see, so now to pay for those services, we get some direct funding from New York State. We have a local sales tax. There's a room tax on B&Bs and hotel rooms. We have various fees. So for instance, you go, one common one that people might know is you go to the Department of Motor Vehicles and you want to register a car, then there's a fee you pay. And also property taxes. And as far as operations, we have a great county administration that is responsible for most of the day-to-day activities and budget planning. And we have about 700 employees, so there's a lot to do. And the legislators, we're more focused on policy. And I'll get into that a little bit, and policy and budgeting. So there's 14 county legislators. Each of them have different districts, and thanks for putting up that map earlier, so you can see where people have their various districts. The each district is divided into about 7,200 people. There's about 100,000 people in the county. And so if you do the math, that's about 7,200 residents in each district. And so in my district, it covers the whole town of Ulysses, including the village of Trumansburg, the northern third of the town of Enfield, and a small portion of the town of Ithaca, so coming from the town of Ulysses all the way down to the city limits on this side of the lake past the hospital. And legislators are paid just over $21,000 a year. Each year we elect a new chair of our legislature, and Currently, she is paid just over $30,000. On average, we work about 30 hours a week, but since COVID hit, many of us have been working a lot more. I know I have been working a lot more. And let's see, you have to be a representative, or you have to live in the district. So for instance, so for me, I have to live in the district that I am running for. And let's see, now I'm looking at my notes. Oh, each 10 years, there's a census done. As folks know, we're in the process of the census right now. And after the census is completed and we get that information, the districts often change a little bit to reflect any population change. So the legislature, in general, we were responsible for going to 2 meetings a month, and those meetings can last anywhere from 2 to 4 or 5 hours. We're supposed to belong to at least 2 committees. I'm on a few more than that. We often join various boards. And let me just see here. I know I've gone way over my 10 minutes, so let me just see. Policies we deal with. I just want to mention one policy that is very important to me, is that we have an overall policy that we're going to do everything that we can to mitigate the climate change, or to mitigate the effects of climate change, and also to get off of fossil fuels as much as possible. So for instance, this past year we bought 3 electric cars, and we're going to transition our fleet to electric. We get most of the electricity from the county from hydropower, which most people don't know. And any new buildings that we're going to build, like we're looking at building a new center of government downtown, I'm really pushing for that to be net zero, so to use no fossil fuels at all. Let's see, anything else here? We also pass local laws. The last one, or one of the ones people might know about, is we raise the age of tobacco use, that you have to be 21, at least 21 years old to use tobacco, or to buy tobacco in the county. Also to use. Our budget right now, it's around 200 million. And as legislators, we're responsible for the final budget, but our county administration brings us a draft budget. And then we also set the county sales tax, property tax, and the room tax rates. We also set the salaries for our employees, ourselves, and other elected officials. Other elected offices in the county are the county attorney, or the district attorney, it's called. He's the sheriff and the county clerk. One of the things as far as budgeting and COVID, the intersection there recently is we approved extra funding for COVID testing. And I always like to put a shout out about that, so that if you don't have COVID symptoms and or you don't have insurance, then a COVID test in this county could cost you $99. Now you can go get a free test, but you have to drive all the way to Binghamton or Syracuse, which is not practical for most people. So the county approved extra funding so that anybody could get tested and you don't have to pay for testing. So if it's not reimbursed by your employer, not reimbursed by your insurance, if you, for whatever reason, you want to get a COVID test, please go get one. And some of the committees I'm on are the Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee, our Community Housing Development Fund, our Facilities and Infrastructure, Housing and Economic Development, our Downtown Facilities, and our Industrial Development Agency, which right now I'm pushing for us to have a local labor policy. We don't have one right now, so I'm really pushing for that. And I'm just going to wrap up by saying you can view any of our meetings on the Tompkins County website. It's tompkinscountyny.gov, G-O-V. We have now a YouTube channel, and you can join any advisory, or you can apply to join advisory boards through our county clerk, or I'm sorry, our legislative clerk. And there's also an application online. I always encourage people to run for office. And to get more information besides watching or attending meetings, you can talk to somebody on that committee or board. You can go to our website, get more information on when that committee meets, or when that advisory board meets. And the last thing that I just want to say to everybody, whether you're in this county or not, is please wear your mask and stay 6 feet apart, wash your hands. And we've done really good at minimizing the effects of COVID, but it's there, and we just need to keep vigilant. So thank you.
Thank you, man. I'll just end with just one particular question. If you can describe the term legislature, because that's a term that most people hear, but not necessarily too familiar with. But if you were talking to, let's say, a 10-year-old, or let's say someone that's 16, 17 that at some point wants to get involved in politics, how would you describe the term legislature? What does that mean?
That's a good question. I would call it a policymaker. I wouldn't call it a legislator, because I think it's in some ways a misnomer. I mean, because I've had people actually call me and say, oh, can you guys legislate this? But typically what we're doing is we're setting policy. So I think that's more accurate.
All right. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your time, and thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
I'm gonna pass it back to
All right. Well, thank you so much. That wraps up our presentations for today. And I just want to say thank you to everybody for making time and carving out an hour and a half of this beautiful day to join us and have a conversation about local politics and local government. And especially a big thank you to Hallie, Stacy, Richard, and Ted Crane, who helped us with our Zoom. Who knows where we would be without Ted, so thank you. And then also a big thank you to Joanna, Duck, Pamela, and for also joining us today and really sharing a wealth of knowledge that they have and their experience and their willingness to really help our local community members to become more involved. So we hope that you'll join us for our next series, which is November 14th. And it is called Areas of Engagement, where Stacy and Hallie will walk us through the many areas that you can be involved, whether big or small, within your community. And have a wonderful day. So thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you all.
Thanks
Have
so
a great
much.
afternoon.
Take care.
See you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Bye, thanks.
Bye, Pam. Thank you, guys, everyone. Everybody's like cutting off so quickly. And I'm like, wait.
This was really kind of fun.
I know.
Thank you for doing this.
I'm so happy right now.
Very nice. Very nice altogether.
Great.
Very nice.
As with everything, you did a great job.
And Ted, the mastermind,
I know, the man behind
awesome.
the
Thank you
screen.
so much.
Quietly moving around.
Did I tell you there would be people registering at the last minute?
Yeah.
You did. And thank you, Pam.
I tried out. I'm on all of our social media, and I reminded people all kinds of times that I promise.
Yeah, and I imagine the other I don't know how many 5, 10 people who register will probably show up for the next meetings.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm definitely excited. So.
Well,
No,
thanks
this-
everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Pam.
you so much, Pam. This
Thank
was
you,
great.
Richard. I appreciate it.
So,
Yeah.
Richard, I have a question for you, Richard.
Sure.
Are you familiar with the Shih Tzu?
Yes, it's actually my favorite dog.
Oh, yay!
My name is Marlo. Marlo Stanfield.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
Oh,
no. He's actually, I almost call him my dog, but he's actually my friend and his wife's their dog, and he is, I think, 5 now.
Aw.
Starting to get like gray hair now, and he's starting to. But yeah, I'm a big Shih Tzu fan.
I love that. I love a man who loves a Shih Tzu too. I just, it's really cute. It's like I always say, like a feminist man gets more love.
Hey,
I think a Shih Tzu loving man gets more love too. So.
I forgot to mention, like, people actually needed any more follow-up questions to contact the TCDC Gmail account.
We can put that. We can definitely put it. Sorry, I was just like thinking. We can put that on social media, and then we can also do an email to all the people who registered with that email address. So that's no problem.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye,
Pam, it was great to meet you.
You too. And Hallie and Stacey, I don't know what you have planned for other things, but I'd really be happy to participate in, how to run for office.
Oh, thank you so much. We appreciate that.
Yeah, I have a lot of tips.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
For what it's worth, have a look at my so to speak front yard.
Oh wow, nice. That is dedication.
Well, I didn't realize that was your yard.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either. I didn't.
It's not actually my yard. But it's out by the road.
Oh, okay. Well, anyone I can help in the future, please let me know.
Thanks. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Have a great one.
You too.
Thank
Bye.
You so much.
Bye-bye.
Greatly
You're very welcome.
appreciate it.
Bye bye.
You're welcome.